Good morning, Vietnam. And here I am back again to be super critical of Thomas Friedman from the New York Times. He wrote a second article today on after his first article 2 days ago that I was supremely critical of. And now he's followed it up because maybe he did get some flack about how bad it was. He did make a couple of points in his first article, well, the one 2 days ago, that I agreed with. But overall, he gets a grade F. And again today, he gets another grade F. Because there's so much, or not enough information, and he's trying to suddenly make Netanyahu the bad guy, whereas 2 days ago he was the good guy. And he's trying to come up with a solution, and he's called it the three-state solution. As per the title of the article, How to be pro-Palestinian, pro-Israel and pro-Iranian all at the same time. Except his solution is impossible, because basically he wants to get rid of the three leaders. Well, they've been trying to get rid of Netanyahu for how long has it been now? 20 years. And he keeps staying in power because of those right-wing zealots who keep occupying and gaining more land on the West Bank. Because the Knesset is so close in terms of pro and against Netanyahu, those fringe right-wing nutjobs control the government. And as he correctly points out, Friedman, that Netanyahu is trying to keep control because he's under a criminal investigation and he wants to pardon himself in some way, and that's why he won't go. And of course the Hamas invasion, the Palestinian invasion has been absolutely disastrous, and everybody in the world is condemning it, except the US, which has all the power, won't stop it. Anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit, 5 to 10 minutes max. And then if you want to see my notes and my criticism of the total article, I'm going to attach the article at the end of my verbal criticism. I have attached, which is not part of the article, this description of Thomas Friedman. Thomas Friedman became the paper's foreign affairs opinion columnist in 1995. He joined the paper in 1981, after which he served as the Beirut bureau chief in 1982, Jerusalem bureau chief in 1984, in Washington as the diplomatic correspondent in 1989, and later the White House correspondent and economic correspondent. What he has to do with economics, I have no idea, but I have noticed he's written a few economic articles. I don't know how he suddenly became an expert when he was doing so much foreign affairs work overseas. So I don't know whether he was in Beirut when the US base was attacked and 275 US soldiers were killed, and US had to leave with its tail between its legs, and also bureau chief in Jerusalem. So he should be an expert and know all that has gone on between 1981 and today. But he writes like he knows almost nothing. So I write, what happened to you? Like so many great journalists from the field, they moved to desk jobs and opinion writers like him and or in front of cameras and become total wimps and cowards. They then cannot write a critically researched article giving new ideas to resolve a major problem. They just rehash old facts and ideas and only writing about facts or information that supports their opinion. So then he starts the article when he in the third line, I call it the three-state solution. And I write sarcastically, you are too smart today compared to 2 days ago. Why did you not write this article instead of the garbage you wrote then? And he writes, this is why even this article, why it's getting printed is beyond me. But he writes, it begins with the recognition that there is probably zero hope for any resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict or the Israeli-Iran conflict without leadership change in Tehran, Jerusalem and Ramallah. What an idiot. As he goes on later, but my comment, Tehran cannot be changed unless the Western powers commit to assisting the people. The other two cannot be changed, but the West refuses to do it. Especially the US government refuses to get rid of Netanyahu, because he also does not support a two-state solution, and he wants to stay in power because of his criminal investigations. He goes on, starting with Tehran, I don't favour any Western attempt to topple the Islamic Republic of Iran from outside, but I pray that one day the Iranian people will do so from inside. I write, but as per posting 2 days ago, you said that this is the best way, but you have gotten no evidence, given no evidence, that any Western power has tried to assist Iran internally in any meaningful way to topple the government. He goes on, this region won't see any meaningful peace or stability so long as this current government is in power in Tehran, explained Karim Sajadpour, an Iran expert at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Because Iran's vast resources and training are funding the 5% of fanatics. Of course, you morons. The army and the Revolutionary Guards have all the guns. Where do they get these guns? Where do they buy them from? He goes on, 5% of fanatics who are making life hell for the 95% of Palestinians, Lebanese, Syrians, Yemenis and Iraqis, who just want to live in peace. Yeah, for the last 75 years, especially the Palestinians. And he goes on, to paraphrase Shimon Peres about prospects for change in Iran, the good news is there is light at the end of the tunnel. The bad news is that today there is no tunnel. Yes, of course there's no tunnel, because between the Israeli government and the US government, and to, I believe, at less than an extent, the Palestinian Authority, they refused to make a deal. And a lot of those deals were not reached because of the Palestinians wanted some right of return and also some compensation for the land that's been stolen from them. But again, the US and Israel refused to make any allowances in that respect, and so the Palestinians refused to sign a peace agreement. He goes on to more garbage about the revolution in 1979, and I write, you are a simpleton again. There have been many opportunities for the West, especially the US, to reach an agreement and force an agreement. It was Trump who refused to deal with Iran in a meaningful way to reach an agreement about the nuclear treaty. And then he goes on to say, cracking jokes. In fact, social media accounts in the Arab world have been rife with jokes, ridiculing the Iranian regime for basically 0 to 300. I'm assuming he assumes that they shot down all the 300 missiles, and suggesting that the only people who died did so from laughter, except for the poor girl who's still fighting for her life. Again, I write stupid comments again. This is not a comedy show. As I said in my piece yesterday, being critical of your last article, Iran never ever intended to do any major harm to Israel, only to show that it can. Then he goes on to say about getting rid of Mahmoud Abbas, who's 88 years old. So he talks about trying to get rid of, during the Abraham Accords, trying to reach a peace agreement. So he's saying the Palestinian Authority should be non-corrupt. Well, what was the name of the leader back in the 80s? Arafat. I mean, Arafat was corrupt as a get. They ended up finding out he had $2 million in a bank account in Paris. So, of course it's totally corrupt, because the West doesn't funnel the funds correctly. They need to work out a system where the funds go to the people. And I write, they had an election and Hamas won in 2006, but the West and Israel, of course, refused to accept the results. So Israel then supported Hamas and allowed them to be militarized. And here I have an excerpt from the New York Times last year, in December last year. And the article is titled, Buying Quiet, Inside the Israeli Plan That Propped Up Hamas. And the subheading, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gambled at a strong Hamas, but not too strong. I don't know how he ever thought that. Would keep the peace and reduce pressure for a Palestinian state. Well, you guys totally effed up. I mean, how bad can you F up? So anyway, I refer to the New York Times if you want to look it up, but I have an excerpt of about 10 lines. For years, the Qatari government has been sending millions of dollars a month into the Gaza Strip, money that helped prop up the Hamas government there. Well, that was before the West and Israel wouldn't allow them to get in power. So anyway, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel not only tolerated those payments, he encouraged them. Mr. Netanyahu's government had recently decided to continue the policy. So Mr. Barnier said yes, the Israeli government still welcomed the money from Doha. He writes, Friedman writes, that kind of Palestinian Authority can be a partner for a two-state solution with Israel and replace Israeli forces along with friendly Arab armies and govern Gaza in a place the pro-Iranian Israel-hating Hamas, if it can be dismantled. There was such an opportunity. Who knows what Hamas would have done if they had gotten in power? Maybe they would have softened their negative Israeli stance. But you never gave them a chance. Oh, and now he goes on. I'll end my comments soon. I give the Biden team generally high marks for the job that he's done responding to the hugely fraught and complex Gaza war. Yeah, the annihilation of the Palestinian people and the destroying of almost all the buildings, the attacks on people trying to get food from trucks, the destroying of and bombing the hospitals. What has Obama done? What has Biden done? Zero to stop all this. He keeps sending bombs and ammunition. And then Friedman writes that one key mistake it has made, though, was staying passive as President Abbas appointed a new government led by a long-time crony as Prime Minister, the businessman Mohammed Mustafa, in March. That was not the government of change that many Palestinians were hoping for, that the moderate Arabs were demanding, and that the Palestinian people so badly need it. Well, I write, also tongue-in-cheek, why? What is wrong with him? Why you did no research on him and show it to us? God, this guy is such a moron. Okay, I'm going to almost end it. And then if you want to follow the rest of my criticism of this article, then you can read it. But as anyone who has reported from the West Bank knows, there is abundant leadership talent among Palestinians there, not to mention abroad, highly educated and able men and women. But too few have been tapped for the Palestinian Authority, which needs to have the best and the brightest of Palestinians at this key moment. And I joke and write, what about Donald Trump then? I mean, you talk about the dumbest and the worst people. So the Americans can't get it, so how are the Palestinians going to get it? If it doesn't get full support from the Western governments, and especially the US government, to give the money to force the Palestinian Authority to change. And then he goes on, and I highlight that Netanyahu has to go. And I comment again, yesterday you were praising him, or 2 days ago, Netanyahu that is. So he writes this, moreover, last October, Israel invaded Gaza under Netanyahu's leadership with no exit strategy, no plan for the morning after, and no Palestinian partner that can govern Gaza, along with friendly Arab armies if Israel can bring down the Hamas government. But it almost sounds like a quote from when the US invaded Iraq. But at least this is the best sentence in the article. And he does again give a correct statement. Netanyahu will not partner with the Palestinian Authority and reach no deal, settlement, peace, because he's on trial for corruption. He needs to stay in power to get a plea bargain. Yeah, but why is there no rage within Israel? Why isn't people around the world forcing or trying to help people within Israel get rid of him and get rid of his government? It's not democratic when a handful of those people in the Knesset, who are those right-wing acolytes who keep settling more and more in the West Bank. But you say this, and I say, I quote myself, like you want to change the regime in Iran, why don't you talk about changing the regime in Israel? Okay, he goes on, and I'll just, a couple of things that I write. I'm going to read and then I'm done. What a stupid statement. He talks about fantasizing it in a different direction for a moment. He gives his opinion on how everything can suddenly be resolved. And I write, what a stupid statement. You are an idiot. This can and never will happen without major regime change in Israel first. And then he writes later, yes, I can assure you, nothing could be more to Israel's strategic benefit. The sentence before that is, at the same time, in America and Western capitals, collaboration with Israel will no longer be so politely toxic. And in Moscow and Beijing, their collaboration with Iran will look as cynical as it is. The guy's dreaming. He's just dreaming. He writes, but it cannot and will not happen as long as Netanyahu is in power. And exactly why I think you're an absolute idiot, Friedman. And I finally say, we know all of this. Again, you are rehashing everything everyone knows, but you insist to make it sound that you have come up with a new and brilliant solution. Good luck to you in your next article. I hope I don't have to comment on any more from you. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed my comments on another pathetic article from the New York Times. And if you want to read where my comments are within the article. I'm going to attach it to the end of this my video. Thanks so much. See you next time.